In 2012, the Walt Disney Company purchased Lucasfilms for a total of $4 billion from the company's namesake, George Lucas. This included not only the Star Wars film franchise, but also LucasArts, Industrial Light and Magic, Skywalker Sound, and the Indiana Jones film series. After which, many would bemoan the fact that Star Wars was now controlled by the mouse, and were preparing for Disney to essentially ruin the franchise. So far, that hasn't happened. One of the questions that Disney would have to work out was, would anyone go see a Star Wars movie that wasn't part of the main series in an off year? To test the waters, the company hired Monsters and 2014's Godzilla director Gareth Edwards to direct a new film set in the Star Wars universe titled Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. And while some of the cool kids may argue back and forth, the actual movie itself, while not mind-blowingly spectacular, is, in and of itself, a worthy effort and is a pretty darn good time while it lasts. Set just prior to the events of Episode 4, Rogue One details the story of Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones, a prisoner of the Galactic Empire who is recruited by the Rebel Alliance to carry out a mission to rescue her father, Galen Erso, played by Mads Mikkelsen, who was a former Imperial scientist who is, in no uncertain terms, the main architect of the Death Star. Unbeknownst to her, Rebel pilot Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, has his own mission to kill her father. Naturally, the plan goes awry and sets up a showdown between the Rebel fleet and the Empire, which is alluded to in the opening crawl of Episode 4. The biggest problem with Rogue One is that even though the characters are all new, the plot and the story beats feel very much handcuffed to events in the prior Star Wars films. You know the eventual destination, and getting there seems to be as if you're just checking off boxes on a guidebook. That's not to say that the ride isn't enjoyable. However, you can't help but think that it would be more enjoyable if there were a new story set within the Star Wars universe that were unfamiliar and would be treading on new ground. One of the things we do get to see is some small glimpses into life under Imperial rule, and the day-to-day living conditions on a planet like Jedha, which is under the Empire's occupation forces. Felicity Jones does a serviceable job as the female rebel Jyn Erso, although at times she is prone to giving the thousand-yard stare. Mads Mikkelsen is, as always, terrific in everything he does. Although you're used to seeing him play a bad guy in most films, he very convincingly makes the transition from playing a villain to tragic hero. Diego Luna as Cassian Andor is cast as an unwitting leader of a rebel strike force who carries out what is, spoiler, a suicide mission. Alan Tudyk as K2SO felt less like a stand-in for C-3PO and more like a wisecracking smartass friend only in droid form. Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera is mainly there to mark the passage of time from when Jyn Erso was a child to where she is an adult, which is a shame because it's a character you'd like to see more of. However, he does risk wearing out his welcome. But of all the performances, it's Donnie Yen's blind master that was most enjoyable. Yes, it's a stereotype that an Asian guy plays the blind martial arts master, but who cares, it was awesome. And while many may bemoan the posthumous inclusion of the late Peter Cushing's Grand Moff Tarkin, it doesn't detract from the character's significance, although at times the character model does appear to be blatantly faked and rather waxy in complexion. And you have to wonder, would it have been better to recast this role entirely? Rogue One abandons most of the mysticism of the Star Wars universe in favor of telling what is essentially a war story. The film feels as if you could strip away the science fiction elements and settings and could very easily be set during World War II, and it would still very much work. As well as life under Imperial rule, we do see locations that we have never seen in a Star Wars movie before, such as the home of the Empire's databank on the tropical planet Scarif, and we also see where Darth Vader hangs out when he's not off being the Empire's muscle. The rumors of reshoots that have dogged this film do linger in the back of your mind, and it makes you question what would the film be like without them, and what was cut from the final film. Surprisingly, one of the things that partially drags the movie down is the inclusion of Easter eggs, which don't feel like they're an integral part of the story, but inserted mainly as fan service. Watching the film at times, it seems as if you're just counting down to the next reference, as if you want the audience to say, hey, I recognize that. Some of the Easter eggs are very well done, and given the recent passing of Carrie Fisher, one in particular feels very appropriate. Rogue One is a bit of a Frankenstein of a movie. Even though this may sound like a negative review, the film is actually enjoyable on its own from start to finish. The good does indeed outweigh the bad, and you never once feel as if you've been ripped off. If this is indeed a sign of what's to come with a Lando Calrissian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a young Han Solo movie, then hopefully they can build on this foundation and improve things from here on out. Rogue One: A Star Wars Story gets 3.5 out of 6 Chewbaccas. That's it for now. See you next time.
Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the Nets are gonna kick in. My